The hostess looked him up and down the gray t-shirt, the worn jeans, the frayed backpack, and made her decision in under a second. "I'm sorry, this is a private lounge. Premium passengers only." Marcus Ellington held out his boarding pass. First class, valid, already scanned. She didn't even look at it. "We get a lot of people who try things at this door." Behind him, men in business suits walked through with a nod, no ID, no second glance. He stood there alone, holding his backpack strap, while a line gathered and strangers turned to stare. "This lounge has a standard," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We have to be careful about who we let in." What Claire Whitmore didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man she'd just humiliated in front of 40 travelers, the man she was about to seat in the back and feed spoiled food and call security on, owned the gold letters above her head. He owned the lounge. He owned the chain. He owned her job. And in about 20 minutes, he was going to use it. But before we get there, be honest with me. If you were standing in that line, humiliated in front of everyone for a flight you paid for, what would you do? Walk away? Demand a manager? Or quietly wait, like Marcus did, and let them dig their own grave? Tell me in the comments, then stay. Because what he does next is better than anything you're thinking. To understand why Marcus stayed, why he swallowed it, instead of pulling out the title that would have ended the whole scene. In a sentence, you have to understand why he was standing at that door in the first place. He hadn't come to Atlanta as a CEO. He'd come as a ghost. For 2 years, though, the Atlanta flagship had been the best lounge in his entire chain, at least on paper. Every report glowed. Customer satisfaction at 97%. Food audits marked excellent. Complaint volume so low it barely registered. Claire Whitmore's quarterly reviews read like brochures. And yet, somewhere out in the world, a different version of Atlanta was taking shape. It started as scattered posts on travel forums, then a thread, then dozens, strangers describing rudeness, food that smelled wrong, being seated in the back like an inconvenience, being asked again and again to prove a ticket they'd paid thousands of dollars for. 2 completely different lounges, sharing one address. Both could not be real. So Marcus had done the only thing he trusted. He hadn't announced an inspection that would have given them 3 days to scrub the floors and rehearse their smiles. He'd dressed like the man he used to be at 19, bought a genuine first-class seat, and walked in as a nobody to find out which Atlanta was the true one. He had his answer before he'd even gotten through the door. They let him in eventually, grudgingly. The way you let in something you've already decided you'll be cleaning up after. A food and beverage supervisor named Derek led him past the bright front room, past the window seats and the gleaming buffet, down a short corridor to a cramped corner near the service doors. Worn carpet, bad light, a chair facing the wall. "Someone will bring you something," Derek said, and was gone before the sentence finished. Marcus didn't mind the corner. The corner, it turned out, was the best seat in the house for seeing what they didn't want seen. From there, he had a clean line of sight into the main room, where a chef in a white coat fanned smoked salmon across a silver tray, where wheels of imported cheese sat under glass, where fresh fruit gleamed, and a real espresso machine hissed for the men in suits. And he had an equally clean line of sight to the back exit, 10 feet to his left. His own tray arrived after 15 minutes. He looked at it for a long moment before he understood what he was looking at. A chicken sandwich, the bread gone translucent, a sour smell rising off it before the plate even touched the table. A salad wilted to gray, fruit with bruised brown faces turned up, coffee gone cold with a skin on top, and a little pitcher of milk that made him pull back when he leaned toward it. Marcus had spent his entire adult life in premium service. He didn't just know good food from bad. He knew safe food from dangerous, and this had crossed that line. Not a bad morning. Not one careless batch. The premium product was sitting right there, 30 feet away in the bright room, and none of it had come to him. Which meant the only question left was, where was it going? He found out by watching the back door. Over the next 20 minutes, 2 staff members carried sealed catering boxes out that rear exit boxes that belonged on the buffet and handed them to a man with a cart waiting in the service corridor. Cash changed hands. Quick. Practiced. The motion of people who'd done it 100 times and never once been caught. Because the only people who ever got seated near that door were the ones nobody important was watching. The whole scheme assembled itself in his head, cold and clean. They were skimming the contracted premium goods and selling them out the back. To hide the gap, they fed paying customers spoiled discount food. And to bury the evidence, somebody upstairs was forging the reports and making the complaints disappear. He could have made his call right then. He had everything he needed. He didn't because the math wasn't finished. A food safety disaster in his lounge, one bad sandwich, one elderly passenger, one compromised immune system, and someone could die here. Under his name. Under the word he'd built the whole company on. And then, 2 tables away, the math stopped being theoretical. The couple were in their 70s. The husband moved carefully with a cane. The wife hovered over him with the easy tenderness of 50 years together. A tray came for them. The same translucent bread, the same sour smell. The husband reached for it. Marcus was up before he'd decided to be. "Sir, I wouldn't," he said quietly, crossing to their table. The chickens turned. "You can smell it. Please don't eat that. Let me get you something safe." The old man blinked up at him, confused and grateful. His wife leaned toward the plate, caught the smell herself, and went pale. And that was the moment Claire chose to reappear. "Sir," her voice carried clean across the room, "you need to stop disturbing other guests. We've had complaints about you since the second you walked in." She turned to a passing server without lowering her tone. "Call security. We've got a guest causing a disturbance." The room went still, heads turned. Marcus stood in the middle of his own flagship lounge in the gray t-shirt, in the worn shoes being publicly cast as the problem, for warning 2 strangers not to eat something that could land them in a hospital. That was the 20 minutes. That was when he was done waiting. He took out his phone and made one call. "This is Marcus Ellington." The voice was low, level, and absolutely certain, the voice 43 lounges worth of people knew to obey. "I'm in the Atlanta flagship. I need you here in 10 minutes. Lock the storeroom. Secure every camera file from the last 90 days, and let no one near them. Pull the delivery invoices and the catering manifests. Nothing leaves this lounge, not the front door, not the back. Nobody on staff goes home. And get food safety down here now. We are serving spoiled product to customers." He ended the call into a silent room. Claire was staring at him. For the first time, the polished certainty on her face had a crack running through it, because regular passengers in gray t-shirts did not make phone calls like that. "Excuse me," she said. "Who do you think you are?" He didn't answer her. He turned instead to the young woman at the podium, Tanya, 22, the one who had scanned his pass at the very start and said it's a valid ticket in a room where saying it had cost her something. "Tanya, could you bring me the manager's tablet and the guest log, please?" She was already moving. She'd already understood. The regional director arrived, 7 minutes later, breathless, 2 security officers, and a food safety inspector at his back. He took one look across the room, straightened up, and said the words that detonated everything. "Mr. Ellington, sir. We came as fast as we could." The name landed like a struck bell. Marcus watched the truth move across Claire Whitmore's face in stages. The blazer, the lanyard, the certainty, all of it draining away as she looked at the man she'd ID'd at the door, seated in the back, fed spoiled food, and tried to have removed by security, and finally understood that she'd done every bit of it to the man who owned the gold letters above her head. Derek had gone the color of the wilted salad. 2 of the back door staff drifted toward the exit and found a security officer already filling it. The investigation was fast because the evidence had been sitting in plain sight the whole time. They'd simply gambled that no one who mattered would ever look. The camera files told it frame by frame. Weeks of catering boxes carried out the back, weeks of cash, Weeks of the real product, never once reaching a plate. The invoices showed premium goods ordered and paid for in full salmon, imported cheese, fresh produce, premium coffee in quantities that should have fed every guest twice over. The storeroom held a fraction of it. The bright front buffet was a stage set. Just enough real food on display to photograph well and to feed the handful of guests who looked like they might complain to someone important. Everyone else got the spoiled tier. The reports were forged outright satisfaction scores, invented from nothing. And the real complaints, the forum posts come to life, had been entered into the system and then quietly deleted, batch after batch, so nothing ever reached corporate. A few employees had been paid small sums of hush money to look away out of the profits of food stolen from the very travelers they were serving. Marcus read all of it in the manager's office, with the door open, methodical and unhurried, while Claire tried 3 different explanations that each collapsed under the timestamps. "You looked at me at that door," he said at last when she'd run out of words, "and you decided I wasn't worth your standard. That's the part I need you to hear. The theft is a crime, the police will handle that. But deciding in 1 second that a human being in a gray t-shirt doesn't deserve to be treated like a person, that's the one thing this entire company exists to make impossible. And you built a lounge on it." She had no answer. There wasn't one. He terminated all of them. Claire, for the discrimination and the fraud and the forged reports and the deleted complaints. Derek, who'd run the backdoor pipeline. Every staffer who'd taken hush money or had a hand in the skimming. The matter went to the authorities. The food safety violations alone carried real legal weight, never mind the theft. But Marcus had never believed in easy stories about people, and there was Tanya. Tanya, who had welcomed him in, who had said it's a valid ticket when it cost her something, who, when the investigators asked, told the truth without hedging. Yes, she'd seen things go out the back. Yes, she'd raised it. Yes, she'd been told to mind her job because complaints got handled upstairs. She'd been overruled and sidelined and kept on only because she scanned fast and didn't make waves. She'd made a wave at exactly the right moment for exactly the right reason, with no idea who he was. That was the whole test, and she'd passed it, without ever knowing she was being tested, which is the only kind of passing that means anything. He kept her on through the investigation, and when the new lounge took shape, he promoted her onto the team rebuilding the place. She'd had the courage to tell the truth about. The reopening came after a long overhaul. New staff, everyone trained personally. Every supplier re-vetted, every contract re-audited, the catering pipeline rebuilt, so a box couldn't leave the building without 3 people knowing. Cameras on the service doors not to spy. Marcus told them plainly, but so no honest employee could ever again be overruled in the dark. Real audits by people who didn't report to the lounge they audited, and hours of training on the thing that had failed worst of all. How you treat the person in the gray t-shirt. On reopening morning, Marcus came back not in disguise this time, but not in armor either. He stood in the bright front room, with the new staff gathered around, Tanya among them with a supervisor's pin on her collar, and he said the thing he'd been saying for 26 years. Except now everyone understood what it had cost to mean it. People think luxury is the leather chairs, he said. The stone floors, the expensive food, it isn't. You can have every bit of that and run a place with no soul in it at all. I just spent 3 weeks proving exactly that. He glanced for a moment toward the door. Luxury is when someone walks in tired and braced for disappointment, and you give them the one thing nobody can fake. You give them their dignity, every guest, every time, no matter what they're wearing, especially no matter what they're wearing. He let it sit. A service that's beautiful on the outside and contemptuous on the inside is just a nicer-looking insult. And when a system starts hiding what it really is, forging the reports, deleting the complaints, fooling the people upstairs, then the only leadership left is having the nerve to tear it out. Because the people walking through that door are trusting us. That's the whole job. Don't ever forget who's trusting you.